The first of its kind Wolves USA meetup is rapidly approaching. Join official Wolves USA supporters groups in Houston on the weekend of October 1st for TexFest 2022. It'll be a jam-packed weekend of fun for all ages, centered around the match against West Ham on Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Central. To register for the event and to view the entire weekend itinerary, visit HoustonWolves.com or simply check out the link on the show Twitter page at WLWPod or on Facebook at Whole Lotta Wolves. Come join the pack in Houston.
Welcome to Whole Lotta Wolves, episode 5 of season 3. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
And I am Paul LePage.
And joining us in the producer role again, Mr. Alex Patakis. How's it going, Alex?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. And returning from Wolves in Dallas, which is a growing group, I'm sure he'll have some exciting things to say about that, is Aaron McAlister. How's it going, Aaron?
Good, fellas. Good to be back.
No, we appreciate it. So we are going to get to the game. But first, a little bit of sad news we have to pass on. And I do know that some of our listeners may already know this or may know who this person is. Clive Hill from Houston Wolves, who grew up in Wolverhampton and moved to Houston. He's affectionately known as Clive from Houston on the Wolves blog, and always predicts a 5-1 scoreline for Wolves. He passed away Saturday. Unfortunately, he had beaten bladder cancer earlier in the year, but the treatment just kind of took its toll. And unfortunately, we found out Saturday that he had passed away. Paul, I'm going to let you say a few words because it was you two that started Houston Wolves together.
It was. He was the original Houston Wolf, and it was thanks to that those posts on the Wolves blog back when I first moved, which is 11 years ago now, that we connected. That you wouldn't think all these thousands of miles away that you'd bump into someone who affectionately grew up a few miles down the road, and even though he's kind of a generation older than me, you're brought together and your friendship grows thanks to this little soccer club called Wolverhampton Wanderers. So originally we started to meet just for a beer and talk about the Wolves, and then our first games, I think, were pretty much when it was back in the beIN Sport days of the Championship, and it just a really ropey internet connections or dodgy coverage if the bar even was able to show it. So there was just me and him. I remember going to the Richmond Arms on one occasion. On another, it was a Friday afternoon, and he came to my house, and for some reason I couldn't get the TV connection to work properly, so we were huddled around my laptop watching. So these two guys thousands of miles away watching this tin pot little club in the Championship, what it was back then, battle it out versus Millwall. I think it was something crazy like that. But it just goes to show that Clive was one of those guys that no matter who we were playing, no matter what league we're in, he was Wolves through and through, and that just shone through by whatever he did. And your connections with him, just your chats to him, it always came back to the Wolves. And what I particularly love about talking to anyone from his generation was the memories that he got, because he'd seen Wolves win championships, cups, you name it. So that those are the highs, those are the high expectations sometimes that can often get people called a grumpy old bugger, which we often did about Clive, because he often seemed overly critical. But hey, if you've seen the Wolves win cups and challenge and have some of the best players on the team, then I think you're entitled to those opinions. I always think of his irrational hatred of Stephen Ward, which years on from the Stephen Ward days, a converted left back, he still used to bring it up, and it always made me laugh. It's just like, Clive, let it go. What's he ever done to you? Has he run over your cat or something? But no, irrational hatred of Stephen Ward. But he was a guy that would have talked to, and he did talk to everyone at the bar on a match day. He'd make himself known. He'd use bad language. But that was Clive, and there will be a spot missing for him on Wednesday and going forwards, and one less pint to Hopadillo drunk at Nick's place, which is a shame. So, affect pretty much my first friend in Houston, and thanks to the Wolves, and he'll be sorely missed by us and obviously his friends and family. So,
yeah, I first met Clive 3 years ago, and yeah, I think I learned some new English curse words just watching games with him. And there would be times where, it'd just be me, Clive, and Paul, or just me and Clive a few times at the pub watching games. And my wife and I would call him the legend because we insisted that with his stories, it just seemed like he was a bigger deal than he was letting on. He just had so many great stories from Wolverhampton, and I think he really enjoyed that. I was younger than him and a new fan, and he would tell me so much about the history and his history with the club. And man, it was just I really enjoyed listening to it. And he was just so funny. He called me Jigsaw Boy because I like to do puzzles, and he'd follow them online, and he'd send holiday cards with a big wolf on it, and it would say happy holidays and all that crap. Came to my birthday party one year and was super excited because my wife had gotten a Wolves cake. And he called her the boss, which was always funny. He'd be like, "How's the boss?" Yeah, it's gonna suck. This was a true friend to me and Paul. And it's gonna be weird there Wednesday without him. He hasn't been able to come to games kind of since late last season, but still he was always there for us. And I remember I called him before the season opener this year, and I was prepared to drive up to Huntsville, which is an hour and a half away, to pick him up and drive him down to the pub for the game. And he's like, I don't want to be in the car for that long just to watch him get beat. Which I guess he knew that 2-0 was coming. So yeah, just a great person. Go on to Wolves blog if you have a chance. He wrote a really great piece on Clive on, I think it was Friday, that kind of told some more stories about Uncle Clive. And you just read the stories and you read the comments and you're like, yeah, he had that same joy of the club, and he always he made some of the most ridiculous comments and stuff, but that was who he was, and we loved him for it. He would be, "Hey, Jigsaw Boy, you get a job yet, or am I still paying for you with my tax dollars?" And it was totally just in fun with him saying that. And I knew it. We'd laugh. I go, "No, Clive, you're still paying for this beer today." Yeah. So yeah, you know what? If you knew Clive on Wednesday, if you don't have Hopadillo, get an IPA, lift it up for Clive in the first half. I know I will. So we will miss him. We'll miss him dearly. So with that, we'll move on to the game. This was a little frustrating because they played so well again in the first half, had a lead, and just a ridiculous decision by Hwang that volleyed the ball up in the middle of the field, and St. Maximum, really a great hit, nails it. Game tied, finished that way, 1-1 draw. Paul, it was tough. Even though we all predicted a draw, it still felt like that was one of those that feels like a loss.
It had that stench of inevitability about it again, though, didn't it? That we did okay. We kind of went toe to toe. They had a chance, but we were putting some good stuff together. It just seemed like fine margins for our chances, like that ball that Neves put over, and I think it was then like the first time cross or a cross on the volley from Guedes into Neto, I think it was, and then Raul brushing off Trippier and then whipping that beautiful ball in for Nunes. That was probably a better chance than Willock's was. So if those would have gone in, you're talking about a spectacular performance of some really fantastic football, but they didn't. And whilst it was a great goal, you did kind of think that something was going to happen the other way in the second half. And for me, I was disappointed in that we were the home team and they were missing two of their strongest players, yet we didn't exert ourselves as much as I thought we could and thought we should have. And I'm a little bit on the fence as far as Lage goes and how he's putting this team together, but it's a distinct issue for me that's growing, that we never seem to be able to finish teams off. Admittedly, if that Neto foul would have been given, that would have been ideal. 2-0 up, it really would have choked them out of the game, and we'd have been talking about this tonight, that it was a perfectly executed defensive performance against a tough team, because Chris Wood always scores against us, and Kilman and Collins didn't give him a sniff. Semedo pocketed St. Maximum for 90 minutes till he moved position effectively and got gifted that chance. So fine margins, but A, we've got to do a better job of killing teams off, and B, surely there's question marks over his subs unless something's up with Traore, because if you do have backs against the wall, especially from home, if a team's chasing you, what better player to put on and leave as the last man even, or take an attacker off, leave two up top with him being on the last man. So what's going on there, I don't know. Whether that's fully on Lage, that he couldn't bring him on for whatever the reason, then so be it. But if Bolly didn't want to turn up, I wouldn't think that if something was happening with Traore that he'd even be on the bench. So I'm still questioning that getting on for nearly 48 hours after the match. It still doesn't sit right with me.
How about you, Aaron? What were your thoughts?
Echo a lot of that. It sounds like a broken record. We have brilliant performances for 75, 80 minutes, create plenty of chances and don't put any of them away. And then there's that one mistake that, ends up costing us. And when we still come over with the draw, it still, like you said, feels like a loss. I feel like I have some sort of bad omen or something, because in the Tottenham game, about 70 minutes in, I leaned over to my friend and said, Collins is man of the match. And then the goal comes right off his back. We're up 1-0 here. I text my buddy and I say, hey, look, show me we can win a game. Finish this out, see this out. Next thing you know, that was 3 points we needed at home against a team that we like Paul mentioned, had multiple players out that we should have taken advantage of. So like I said, broken record, it's pretty frustrating that it seems like we're complaining about the same things here repeatedly. Lots of good shining moments in there that we could talk about. Like you said, Semedo I thought was brilliant. We did create those chances and they were there for the taking. So the play leading up to all of that was brilliant, like you said, fine margins. And so I like Lage and I like what we're doing, but how many times can you keep saying it's just that one thing? Well, that's just that one thing for every other team, and you watch teams put 5-9 away this weekend, and you're sitting here going, how did we just squeak one out because Neves pulled his magic? We can't count on Neves' magic every single time, and he's not going to do it 3 times a match. So frustrating for sure.
Well, let's talk about Neves first. He had an absolutely incredible game. It wasn't even just that goal, which was just a beautiful knuckleball in there. but he was passing brilliantly. His challenges were on point. I mean, Paul, was that the game? Was that definitely a game where you looked at and were like, we need this transfer window to close now and get an extension because like he's the heart of the team right now.
Yeah, I'm sure all the agents and managers are listening to a whole lot of Wolves, so I'm going to tell them that he was absolutely dreadful. Go and sign Ross Barkley on a free. You'd be getting a much better player. Nothing to see here. Move along. That was one of the probably most complete midfield performances I've ever seen to all of those points. It had everything in there. So it just probably in those types of games strung together consistently, you'd say he's probably in the form of his Wolves career, which when he keeps on setting such a high bar that he keeps on pushing it forwards as well. So wrap up the transfer window, get some fresh ink on a new contract for 2 or 3 years, and we can breathe a little easier for the remainder of the season.
Aaron, what are your thoughts? Do you think Neves is staying? It seems like he really likes Nunes and Guedes, so I do think that's going to play into it.
I was definitely nervous at the beginning of the window, and after the last season, I definitely thought, somebody's gonna offer enough that we're gonna pull the trigger. But then you see all those offer numbers come in, you're like, oh, on our side, you're like, no, that's not enough. It seems like he wants to stay. It really does. You look and see like the things that he posts after matches. We've been losing and having some not great performances, and he's still, digging in. So it feels like, things are trending in the right direction for him to stay. And as Paul said, look the other way. There's nothing to see here. If we could tie that in, that'd be fantastic.
Another person who had a great game was Semedo. And as Paul, as you alluded, like his first start back in an EPL game this season, and he shut down St. Maximum. And let's remember, St. Maximum ran circles around Man City last weekend. So to watch him go from that to Semedo just shutting him down, here are other stats: 100% tackle success rate, 8 clearances, 5 ball recoveries, 5 of 8 ground duels, one key pass. This team has definitely missed him on that right side, haven't they?
Yeah, it really showed, I think, his capabilities yesterday. And also, I'm not sure whether it was the brief that he was given, but Johnny seemed a lot more solid, switched over to the left as well. So maybe that was a combination of him being in his preferred position that made him have a better game as well. But I just thought Semedo was fantastic. He would have been, again, up there as a man of the match contender, definitely, if they'd have kept that shutout. But again, we try and look to the positives, that it's another switch to a 4 where we've come away and looked pretty strong. That it was, again, only an error that cost us a goal, an unfortunate goal, but the balls they were putting into the box from corners, Trippier's long throw, oftentimes in prior years, you were quaking in your boots if you saw that coming in, that type of pressure that we'd be really uncomfortable dealing with. And now it seems we've got 2 big centre backs who are certainly competent with that type of pressure, and they're excelling. So that can be a positive, that it was certainly a better Newcastle team than we've come up previously. And for 90 minutes, we kept them quiet. So hopefully that's the case that we can build on and give encouragement to the 4, and it's another game together that they build on and get momentum from the new formation that way.
Aaron, you mentioned with Collins that the game before you had just said, oh, he's the man of the match, and then missed. I swear to God, I was in the process of tweeting that exact same thing right and I was like, delete. But I mean, it definitely, that was the case in that game. He had another spectacular game. Him and Maximilian and Max are just man, they are tough back there. They are really turning out to be a solid duo for a back 4. How exciting is that to see?
Yeah, it's great. shifting that formation. Obviously, last year, I think we were in right in that we didn't have the tools for it. But Collins has come in and been great. I mean, we have, Kilman just continues to grow and become, what we've been seeing. I like, a lot of what Collins has shown. He's been really steady. He kind of shows every match he has that little gaff here and there. So, a little bit of cleanup on some of that stuff, but he, along with Kilman, can kind of drive the ball forward pretty well and has pretty good control. And like Paul said, they seem to be confident and calm back there, even when the pressure is on. And then track back to the Nelson thing. Nelson, obviously, the complaints of him before were the final product in the offensive third, and so he's in the position that I think he's meant for now, and you can see it. And he's thriving, and that also kind of feeds into the center back performance when you've got, their best player in handcuffs on the side. It's easier for the other two to kind of clean up the mess behind that. So I'm loving what we're seeing from the back for sure.
Ready for a hot take, Paul?
Yep.
Collins is going to have turned out to be our best signing this transfer window.
Ooh.
I really think so. I just watch him play, and he is so solid. And I think we're already kind of taking it for granted what he's doing back there. I mean, he's been really good. And don't get me wrong, I've seen a lot of good things from Nunez. I think Geddes is going to be good. We'll talk about the other new additions coming, but and Collins, he's fun to watch. If you like defense, if you like good center back play, he's the guy.
I think what would really turn that up a notch, and it's something that we've not really had, is a genuine threat from corners, and he contributes 3 or 4 goals, and we turn into a threat from set pieces. I think if you add that to his game, then you'd be talking about the transfer of the window for sure.
That was a steal for what we paid for him, for how young he is. He got thrust in that lineup right away, and he looks every bit as good as a top center back in the EPL. He's really made that one mistake, which it ended up costing a game. I can't gloss over that, but he's been so solid. I've been really impressed with him. We did finally get to see Raul come back this week for both the Newcastle game and the victory against North Preston Inn, the 2-1 win. And I'm loving what are you loving more, Paul? Seeing Raul with some confidence, or seeing Raul pull out the props after every goal now?
I would rather have more props because it means more goals, but less VAR. So there's a certain combination that has to fall in our favour somehow. I don't know how it's all going to work itself out, but better. I saw some negativity towards Raul after the match, and I didn't see that completely myself. Again, that move when he brushed off Trippier and put a sumptuous ball into the box, that was the Raul of old. Then with his goal, right place in the right time, which is exactly where you want him to be. I think it was a chance in the first half where he didn't kind of catch it right, and it might have been a side foot effort, and it bobbled up kind of and hit him on the calf or the shin. I think if he was truly playing at top form, those are the types of chances that he would have buried. And I don't know what it was, but in the second half, when that chance came and Nunez broke through, and it seemed like we had an overload and Raul was through on the right-hand side, I still don't know why he wasn't fully up right alongside him to have a easy ball slid through for an easy chance. But apart from that, put him in the right spot, I think we can get some goals.
And we will talk a little bit about that Carabao Cup game. Raul was great. I mean, we didn't get to see it, but thankfully Mikey Burrows did a tremendous job of detailing the action. I know he's a big-time listener of this show, right, Paul?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
certain bits of it.
Yeah. So we definitely thank him for that on Tuesday. But I thought the announcers were gonna just go down on the field and strangle him when Raul didn't take that PK in that game, and he gave it to Hwang instead. I understood why he did it, and I think some people understood the thinking behind it as well. But boy, that turned out to be a bad mistake, didn't it, Aaron?
Yeah, that was tough. I like to see both sides and think, like you said, I can understand why you're doing it. You want to help this other guy get off, but man, it stung because he could have used another. It's not like he's got 10 goals on the year and he's bagging them left and right. Go get you another goal. Let's turn it up on them, and it was disheartening for sure. And then with Hwang missing, just pile on the errors from him this year that seem to keep stacking up. And it was tough. I think that was a crucial moment in that game that ended up making that a contest when we shouldn't have been. It felt like it should have been a blowout going into that. And then you turn around and look at that one moment being the reason why we're just squeaking into the next round and not taking great confidence into the weekend. So yeah, it was frustrating for sure.
Paul, what were your thoughts when that was going on?
Much to those points of Aaron's, there's a couple of things. Unwritten rule is, unless you're the penalty taker, if you're fouled for the penalty, you don't take it. So first off, have you got the composure? You might have done a play to get in that position, and suddenly you take the foul, but then you've got the burden to put it away. And secondly, I wanted to see Raul being more selfish. I wanted to see him wrap the goals up, and the more the merrier. Build his confidence up even more. I think the only time you would have given that to Hwang would have been literally if you were 4 or 5-0 up, not at 1-0 up and the game 2-0 up. But the game's only takes a goal, as they saw in the second half. When it's 2-0, it only takes a goal for the opposition and they're back in it. So errors all round as far as that particular decision went.
And so that leads us back to the Newcastle game. I thought Hwang missing that penalty kick was going to be it for him, especially then rumors of Leeds interested in him kind of came up after that. Everybody was like, we'll pack his bags for him. We'll drive him to Leeds. He came on as a late sub instead of Adama, and I don't know what he was thinking with that supposed clearance. Just clear it out of bounds. You don't hit it up in the air right to the side of the box. Paul, I mean, why was he in the game? Is this it for him? Like, you can't keep throwing him out there, right? And I like the guy, but geez.
Yeah, I said right from the start that I don't really see him as a starter, but for the amount that we paid for him, he's probably a very capable sub that you can bring on in the EPL and maybe snatch a goal like he did sometimes last season. But to be in that situation where you are defending, you've certainly got a job to do to close out a game. For him to do that was just unbelievable. And it was, it was a 1 in a million hit, but you taught from an early age playing the game, don't put the ball across your box. So I don't know. I'm a little exasperated from him now. I can't see him coming on and making a difference, really. He had some brightish moments against Spurs, but the body of work where he does positive stuff is by far outweighed from all the stuff that he looks negative in, be it a heavy first touch or bad ball control. No real genuine goal contributions for a good while now. I think if we're in any position to get our money back, given what is he, 20, 26, 27, I don't think it's going to appreciate much higher than what we probably paid for him. So if that offer comes in, I'll be inclined to accept.
Aaron, do you think we're really kind of what the club's missing right now is that Marsal type player who somebody that knows his role, knows he's not really going to be a starter, but you can count on him to come in and play solid, not make too many mistakes? Because it doesn't seem like they necessarily have that right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time that we are missing that one piece, it feels like, oh, this is that piece, right? What Nunez was that piece, right? We want that midfielder that can be a game changer. Well, he came in and he's done everything that was advertised. He's good defensively. He carries the ball well. He moves the ball well. Well, now that piece is here, and it's, well, what's this other piece that is the one piece that we need? So
Great point.
Yeah, I don't know that we really have. The bench every week looks a little bit better and better from that first week when it was, it was like Kundal and that was pretty much it, but we don't really seem to have that player. I mean, Donk is kind of that guy a little bit, but where does he fit in the positionally as far as just a guy that comes in and kind of could secure some things? But yeah, I mean, looking at the team, we don't have that guy. But is that our first need right now? I can't say that that's, the primary need for us.
Paul, you mentioned like this one was probably on Lage because of his decisions and the substitutions. I saw earlier some people questioning, he's probably, I think he's already losing the players, which I don't think is anywhere near the case. I think actually the players like him a lot. And I do think he's putting him in good spots in the first half. But again, and this has always been my complaint about it, he just takes so long to make substitutions. And now, even when he is, it doesn't seem like good moves. I mean, do you think like this is a legit thing that he could not make it through the season?
I do think it is a legit thing. I don't think it's going to happen imminently. People are putting a lot of pressure on these two games next, but I feel that you're still at an unfair advantage because you're coming to the end of a transfer window. If the window had shut right before kickoff of the season, then you would be looking after the first 6 games to see where we are and how we've done. I don't think we're going to get that barometer of what this team's capable of and what his capabilities are as a coach to bring the best out of them till probably maybe 8 to 10 games in. But that's a fair chunk of the season at that point, and you're on the verge of a winter break that could well come at a really bad time, especially if you're hovering around the bottom 3. I would hate for us to be in that position at that time. Who knows what you're going to come back to after the World Cup? I don't think Fosun will rest on their laurels if they've got a feeling that something's not right. I think they would be quick to fire. But it's just a hope that if that's the thought, they've got a strong contingency in place, because it's one thing to make the decision. It's another to get it right when you've got the rest of that season to contend with, and potentially only a winter window that's notoriously difficult to trade in. So I wouldn't be surprised. I hope not. I generally do. I've got a feeling he'll turn it around, but I think it's right of us to have questions for sure.
How about you, Aaron?
It feels like we're having the same conversation that we had every time I came on last season, beginning of the year, middle of the year. Do we think Lage is the right guy? Yeah, I mean, it feels right. It feels like we're bringing in the right pieces. We put in these performances of 85 minutes of great play. We just don't put the chances away. And so how much of that do you put on the manager? And then, the result goes the wrong way. And then you're sitting there going, well, is this actually working? It feels like it is, but when you're sitting here with not a handful of points. And like you said, we've got some crucial matches here that we need to come away with some things. And then there's a pretty tough stretch. And then you're coming up on that, December window there real quick. And, if things slide more in the direction they're going now, I could see him being outed. But with the ownership backing him and going for these targets that are supposedly his targets, which is what we were calling for before, it seems like they're trying to push for him to be the guy. But there's only so much leash that they can give you before, you have to make a decision. So I'm on the fence with that one as well.
Yeah, I would hate for it. I mean, he led him through a season with practically none of his players. He's finally getting backed, and really he's having to incorporate these guys right in the middle of a season. I would hate if he wasn't given a chance to at least, turn things around. I still think his system can really work once everybody gets used to it, but it does concern me his choices in subs and just the reluctantness to make changes. I mean, I can't think of many times he's made a change before the 70th minute and usually later. Well, speaking of him being backed, we got good news today in the fact that Sasha has received here we go, 18 million euros expected medical tomorrow, which is today if you guys are listening. Alex, what was the poll? Did we say Big Sass, Special K, or Circle K?
The poll had our official show nickname for him being Special K. It was close. All of them received a good amount of votes, but I guess we got to listen to the people, right?
Yeah. Special K definitely there. I did like Brian Donnelly came out with a clutch one with Big Sassy. So I also think we can definitely use Big Sassy. So, Special K or Big Sassy. Here we go. Paul, how exciting is this? 6'7" striker.
It's good, but if we were coming off the back of a win from yesterday, you'd be rubbing your hands together and thinking, great, another option off the bench or to start, different profile of an attacker. Now I'm feeling a bit like, yeah, okay, let's see what he can do. Is it going to solve all these creative problems if he's not getting the service? But I do think he brings a distinct, different profile of forward player. And it could be what's needed, that he's more of a fulcrum for that attacking unit, and he brings those players in, especially if we are sticking with a genuine forward three with more attacking presence from midfield. It'd be great if he's knocking balls off to a couple of finishes either side of him, or teeing up the likes of a Nunes to hit it from the edge of the box. I think it could be some good stuff to watch.
Aaron, how do you think it's going to shake out playing time wise between him and Raul if they're only going to start one up front?
Yeah, that was one of my biggest questions was, do we stay in the same system with this guy, seeing as that they're two pretty drastically different styles of play between the two, that, are we going out to get this guy, like Paul said, to be your sub that comes on that's a target man that, when we're chasing a game, we put this big guy in there and, hey, thump it off his head. He's 6'7", But I watched, some of his stuff, and he is pretty strong in the link up. So it'd be tough. I've liked what Raul has brought since coming back. The effort seems to be, he seems to be playing with a little bit of aggression. Balls are going in the net, whether they're being, called back or not. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance that, and if we do play both of them, or who's getting shifted where and how. But it is something much different than we have, bringing Potence on to be your striker in the 80th minute, and he's 4'11". We're not gonna be getting too many, So it's exciting in that way, that it's a new wrinkle for sure, and it'll be interesting to see how they fit it in.
By the way, we have some of the most unique players now. We have a 6'7" striker, a Smurf at winger, and then the fastest footballer on the planet in Adama Traore, and a keeper that probably legitimately has anger issues. I'm convinced. I mean, again, this is like a fun team to watch, like, because of the characters, because of the traits of these guys. Oh, Paul, Wolves history, have there ever been like this collection of such unique talent together in Wolves history? Because these guys are very unique. You don't see a lot of these player builds.
I think what's really opened up this era of this Wolves team is the ability to attract a certain profile that we are a bigger draw now and able to attract these types of players, like a Jose Sarr, who could in theory be going to a top club in Europe. So in that respect, that there hasn't, but I think that it may detract from the fact that back in previous years, whilst they were not of the characteristics that we've got now, we've always probably had a penchant for signing someone who may be, you know, a little bit quirky or a little bit off, or likes to put his foot in. Even going back to the likes of Paul Ince, when we signed Paul Ince, who was like 36 in the extreme twilight of his career, but he came in and it was fantastic, and we couldn't wait to keep on re-signing him. So we've always had we've always kept an eye out for the somewhat quirky, but now we've just got this wider international presence and ability to draw.
Alex, here are some numbers for us FIFA wise. We have strength 82, positioning 80, and heading accuracy 86. How many headed goals will he have if you did a career mode with him just on crosses?
Yeah, probably one a game at least. I would say he would
At
be
least
40 goals, especially because it's the easiest thing in the world to get crosses in with Adama, who can just run by everybody. If only
runs by or
real
pushes
life,
them off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If only if it were that easy.
I know, right? It's just, I look at it FIFA wise, I'm like, whew, this is, I mean, it's almost like a cheat code. Adama cross to a 6'7" dude. I just really hope, I mean, I'm picturing it. I really hope that we get something like that. Something. The other big name being reported is Boubacar Traore. Wolves apparently submitted an offer to Metz. No word on what that amount was, but it's believed that they met that Metz's requirement. How do you like this move, Paul? He's another young kid, but very highly looked upon.
Again, my YouTube scouting has been extensive on this particular player, and again, he's the best in the world by those clips that I've seen, and the fantastic European back trans track. It was phenomenal. So I'm all for it. But I do think it's a little bit of not necessarily forward thinking, but just giving another dimension to our midfield play. And I think that with Kundal going out on loan today to Swansea, then something's definitely happening to bring someone in to at least fill his place on the bench, if not potentially start and bring something a little different if you are in a three more central midfielders, or those two more double pivot with Neves and another. That type of profile of play could bring something a little different.
He seems like more of a guy for the future, right, Aaron?
It kind of seems that way, but I do agree with Paul that, you know, with Kundal going out, it kind of seems like they are going to try and fill that space with, you know, a young body like that. And, you know, we do, obviously there's rumors with, you know, potentially Donk going out or people going out, but I mean, we know we can't play Moutinho every single game. You know, so we know we're going to need those rotated bodies in, and he does bring something a little different than what we have. And right now, looking at the pieces we have in midfield, we have a bunch of different attributes across the board. So throwing a little something else in there just to keep the variety. I like the move for sure.
I don't know whether he was towing the company line, but Lage has always spoke about signings having to improve the players that they're coming in for. So probably was that more of an issue previously? If the tap of funds hadn't been turned on, was that something he could try out, saying that the players weren't there to really do that, or is now have we got a little bit more flexibility to not bloat the squad, but bring some players in that can add those dimensions, even if they aren't necessarily going to be starting every week? Is there scope for it now, based on the current climate?
I feel like we're definitely getting to the point where we're getting that too deep at every position that he had said he wanted, which is a positive. One name that Talking Wolves had that got me super excited, but I'm sure, not going to happen, was Mohamed Kudus. Alex, I know I know that one got you excited too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's always like a high potential guy that you could sign for cheap in a career mode. I'm sure he was like one of the wonder kids or something in Football Manager too, for those who play that. So it's always fun, but it did seem like for a bench option for Wolves that might not even be in the match day squad, it kind of seemed a little bit far-fetched.
I agree, especially when they were talking about Everton, which makes a lot more sense because he could slide in as a starter there. And then word came out today that Wolves are potentially interested in 32-year-old West Ham center back Craig Dawson. I imagine if they brought him in, this would kind of be the replacement for Willie Bally, who just decided not to show up for work Sunday. Well, first, Paul, with Big Willie, did that kind of surprise you?
It did, and it's a sad ending to what was a fantastic stay at the club, that for years the Wolves were crying out for that profile of centre back, and when he came in, he made it look so easy, even if there was a bobble or an error. His quickness was able to recover it. It was something that we'd never seen. So it, on the one hand, we've got that to look back on, but then on the other, he's hardly been around really for what seems like probably 18 months now, if not longer, in terms of being a player that's going to start. And to begin with, any hint of injury around Bolly, and you were always really fearful, and that's gone away. So was it probably inevitable that he was going to leave? Yeah, probably. But from all the noise to the outside world, you thought it was going to be inevitable. So for something to happen in a way that makes him not want to show up, it just seems a little strange. Maybe not the best advice from an agent, but who knows if they're stickling over a million or 2 million, that the Wolves aren't accepting the bid. So Willie and his agent go and throw the toys out of his pram to force a move, then what you're going to do? That's the age of modern football, unfortunately. But it does leave a sour note for sure.
Yeah, who can forget him scoring the winning goal in the Europa League against Besiktas off his foot too. Not even off a header, off his foot. That was a great memory. So we'll be sad to see him go. What are your thoughts on Dawson coming in, Aaron? Do you think that's a good move, or it's just kind of, hey, somebody to fill depth in case it's needed?
Yeah, I mean, he's a, seasoned vet, Premier League, plenty of experience in the top level, big body that can fill in behind, we seem to stabilize the two center backs there. And then for whatever the reason, whether it's fitness or whatever, we haven't seen Totti or any of the others even feature this season. So, have you fallen out of favor with Bruno or whatever the case may be? If Bally is going to go, then, having that veteran presence to be, a fill-in between the two youngsters, I think it's a good move.
I don't think Toady has fallen out of favor with him. I mean, they didn't want him going out on loan. I just think that Collins and Kilman have been so good that you've got to keep playing them. And you'd maybe look at, a cup game would be the time to get Toady in there and everything. But I love the fact that Lage went for it, and it made smart too to get a lot of these guys playing time with each other. Now Mosquera, he may go out on loan. I heard that potentially talked about, which probably wouldn't be a bad idea, especially since he missed so much of last year. But we definitely can't sell Bally and have him leave without having a fourth person in there. And then we got to talk about the outgoings. So we're going to play a little game of should they stay or should they go? You can cut out that singing again, right, Alex? So
it's
we'll
good,
start.
but it's not that good.
Yeah. So let's start off. There was the report today that Everton offered an amazing £8 million for Leander Dendoncker. They can go F themselves. Paul, obviously the price would need to be a lot higher, but do you want Dendoncker to be on the squad or off the squad once the transfer deadline is over?
Well, I think it's no surprise that a team like Everton are sniffing around him, given the makeup of their backroom team now and Thelwell there. I think for that amount, it's a definite no, based on his contract length, even as it is. But I think when we've got this this squad size that we've got, he has got that versatility. He can come on and do a job. My only worry is that it is this weird period up to a World Cup in the winter that he might be wanting minutes, and it could be one that he's not forcing, but if he gets the opportunity, he'd probably take it. So I don't want him to go, but I think if we got an offer we couldn't refuse, then I think it could one we might see happen.
How about you, Aaron? And what do you think the price tag should be?
I frequently find myself frustrated with Donk, but it seems that it's always because, I guess it's because a good thing, he puts himself in the right positions, and he's always the person who the ball falls to when he's, a foot in front of the goal and just put it in, and it somehow finds its way to never go in. So, is that a bad thing that he puts himself in positions, but he is a solid player, and he does serve a good purpose for me when he isn't having to be one of those starting midfielders. So it'll be where we're currently constructed. I don't know that I would want to see him leave. But like you said, if somebody comes in the mid-teens and is offering, how do you, with the way Fosun seems to spin, where money needs to come in for it to go out, it'd be hard for us to turn down, a solid offer for him.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a good amount, because ultimately Dendoncker is one of those guys that's better as a squad player than a starter. I do think he's somebody that can be brought in if you're trying to hold on to a lead, because he is going to be a little more physical presence. As frustrating as that guy makes me, it would have to be at least 20 for me to consider selling him, not 8. Come on, give me a break. Hwang Chan, who's been linked to Everton and Leeds. Paul, I think I know the answer to this. And the price tag. What would be your price tag?
Oh, for me, he's gone, and I think if we were able to reclaim what we've allegedly paid for him, I think we'd be robbing whoever the purchaser is at the moment.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think he needs a fresh start. It just doesn't seem to be clicking. And, it just seems like one of those situations where he's in his own head and we're all in his head. You know, if you can get 20 back for him, I think it's best for everybody.
Yeah. Now 20 quid or 20 million?
M's, yeah.
Yeah. If they got that, that would be, I mean, that's some Jedi mind tricks stuff right there. This is the Korean winger you are looking for. Yeah, I hate it. I thought he was gonna be one of those good squad guys, but I mean, you can't keep putting him out there. It's 2 critical mistakes just last week. I mean, that's killer. Can't do it. Adama is again. We don't know what's happening there. Spurs are apparently kicking it around again. Paul, thoughts?
Thoughts is that, again, we've talked about it previously, that you'd rather have an Adama on the bench even for the remainder of the season than accept some miserly amount just to get some cash back from a contract that's going to expire. But it depends on what his level of interest and effort and ultimately output is. And the signs are at the moment that is 2 of those things there, potentially not, and what it is for whatever reason, who knows. So I think I'm of the opinion with an expanded bench and 5 subs, try and keep him if we've got the option to, if we can get some tangible output from it. If it's the opposite, where it's coming on for 5 or 10 minutes here and there, he's vanishing in those minutes, or getting knocked off the ball and slamming the ground and not chasing back or whatever it is, then it's a no. But I think if everything was as stands now, if we could get some Adama of old, even for this remaining year, then he stays.
Aaron, he looked pretty good in the Carabao Cup game.
I agree completely with what Paul's saying. If I think he should stay. I posted a picture after he scored the goal of he had this huge smile on his face with arms wrapped around guys, and it was like, I didn't think I would see that again from him in that shirt. So, look, you can be happy for scoring a wonder goal all the way, but like, it just felt like, okay, maybe his head isn't completely out the door. And if we can commit to actually using him, like Paul said, not just throwing him on at 5 minutes left when we're chasing a game where he's not going to have an impact in any way, I'm all for keeping him. If that's not the case and they're not seeing eye to eye for whatever reason, or we're not actually going to try to even utilize his skill set, I would hope he would be able to bring some money in, but that kind of seemed like the issue last time too, was that the offers that we're getting aren't really equating to the talent that we know that he is. So you're kind of in a pickle there. And it doesn't help that he is getting thrown on in these trash minutes and not performing and not raising that level of potential buying possibility. So I think it's a keep for me.
I just want to see some games with, him and Special K. I just feel like there's something there. Him blowing by somebody, just throwing up one of those crazy crosses, and Special K jumping up and heading it home. Yeah, we all know my thoughts. It's not going to change. We got to keep him. Give him an extension. That's I know that's not going to happen, but he's still one of my favorite players. Here's the interesting one for you guys. And it comes with the caveat that it's for £50 million from Arsenal. If they pony it up, Neto, does he stay or does he go for that price?
I don't think we can look at that one without knowing of a incoming replacement or player that would be challenging for that spot.
Adama. It could be Adama, right? Adama, Podence, Guedes.
Yeah, possibly. I'm of a no. I think even for that amount, I think if you've got the figures bandied around for Anthony Gordon from Everton going to Chelsea potentially, I only think it would take a rich vein of form that Neto could easily fall into, that at least another 10 million gets added to that 50 million valuation. So I'm of a no. I'm of a belief that he stays.
Aaron, I saw you go 50. It's tough. It's a big number.
Yeah, I mean that's a big number. My first time on here, y'all asked me who my favorite player was, and he wasn't even on the squad at the time, and I said Pedro. So that would be tough. He's really shown, he's been, for me, one of our best attacking players for the entirety of this season, and he's shown why we were all so excited for him to come back. So I kind of agree with Paul. If we had something incoming, it does seem like we have that an abundance of wing players, but it doesn't feel like any of them quite have the mettle that he has. If Chiquinho comes back and he's just like banging in goals, then sure, maybe let's get it, let's go for it. But it's a keep for me as well, even though that's a big number.
I want to keep him. I really, really want to keep him. I do wonder, though, if he ultimately says, if him and Mendes say, yeah, well, we want to go to Arsenal if they match the price. So I don't know. I'm starting to get the feeling that he may be gone on the deadline day. I think Neves stays. Neves gets a new contract, but I got a bad feeling that Neto might not. And then, yeah, we may scramble. Whether that's Osario might be the guy, Paul, that they bring in from South America for that spot. I don't know. 50 million's tough. I think ultimately Pedro Neto was looked at as an investment, and you look at that and go, I mean, Adama has had more goals and assists in the same amount of EPL games. Just throwing that out there. I know I like Neto too, but I do think that's a possibility. Luke Kundle was loaned out to Swansea City. I think that's a good move for him and for us, Paul. Can you see him spending the season there and then coming back and being Moutinho's replacement?
I think it's a stretch to think that he's going to be Moutinho's replacement just because of the boots that he's got to fill. But I think as it stands, it's going to be a good loan for him for the right profile of team who seem to be set up and playing the right type of way. So I think it's a good move for all parties, and it will probably bring him back to potentially challenging if he's not the heir apparent.
Aaron?
Yeah, I like the move. Prior to Nunez coming in, I was excited that he could potentially get some good minutes and get some first team run. With that change, I think it's a great move. It like Paul said, it looks like a good fit for him. And hopefully he goes and does like Don Fabio on his loan and just goes and catches on fire and comes back exactly how we want him to. So I like the move.
Alex, do you think there's any surprise players we should be keeping an eye out on?
I don't think so. I mean, my surprise one, I think, would be Neto, just given everything that we talked about. I tend to agree with you on that one. I could see it materializing. Yeah, I really feel like that's it at this point.
Yeah. No Cristiano Ronaldo?
He's still searching for a team. And United have proven they are better without him. And he does have the right agent. So just
all right, Uncle George,
do
get it done, right?
Please do not.
I don't. That would be nuts. It's like, how bad do you want to play, Ronaldo? Because the other teams are giving you the big thumbs down right now. All right, let's move into this week's games, and we've got two really big ones. We'll start off with Wednesday's game against Bournemouth, and that's going to be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Bournemouth, fresh off that awesome performance against Liverpool, where they lost 9-0. Paul, what are the chances of Wolves scoring 9 goals against Bournemouth?
I was going to say if it's 9 goals across the whole of the season, then we'd probably be in that ballpark. In 90 minutes, I somehow doubt it.
Have you watched much of Bournemouth so far this season, Aaron?
I've caught a few glimpses, and I've watched, highlight replays back. But I can't speak to, exactly how they're playing this year.
Now they are 1 point ahead of Wolves in the table with 3 points, mostly because of that win over Aston Villa. Paul, what are your concerns heading into this game? Do you think this is the game where we get back on track?
The head says it is kind of, in that it's got some parallels to last season when it was a shaky start and we were playing okay, but we couldn't buy a win, and we had those 3-1 nils on the bounce and won in the cup, and then we went away again to a tricky venue of a newly promoted team against Watford, and we won. So for me, it's got a few of those parallels, but the heart is like, oh no, it's Wolves in going into a really important game to a team that just got thrashed 9-0. It's got an air of something awful about it as well at the same time. So I'm trying to keep the two detached and not let one dominate the other. And if I try and think about it as impartially as I can, it should be a game that we win, surely.
Aaron, what do you think the lineup's going to look like? Do you think it's going to be pretty much what we saw against Newcastle?
I can't imagine it would change. I think Bruno liked what he saw out of that. And I'm not really sure what you do, maybe a Guedes swap, but I think it's going to look pretty similar. The midfield is pretty solid and the back is pretty much etched in. Like Paul said earlier, Johnny had a much better game on that other side. So, does he stick that one out instead of Aït-Nouri? But I can't imagine it changes too much.
It's a good point about Aït-Nouri, Paul. Do you start him or Johnny on that left side?
For me, I don't want to disrupt that too much, especially the way they played for the bulk of Sunday and going away from home. I'd like to keep the tightness at the back and stick with the status quo if everyone's fit enough to have those games back to back.
What will the meltdown be like online before the game if Podence or Adama is starting for Neto the day before the transfer deadline? Aaron, what do you think that'll be like?
Oh, I'll be aggressively refreshing Fabrizio's feed to see if he said anything. Yeah, that'd be a mess for sure, especially like I said, with the performances that he's put in. He almost seems to have written his name on the team sheet now. So, speculation would run wild. And like Paul said, a bit of, oh, we're the Wolves. So is that the debacle that happens today? Is that we've, it would make for a stressful day.
I have a feeling that even if he doesn't end up going, I don't think he starts Wednesday just in case Arsenal comes through and is like, all right, here's 60 million. Like, especially with Neto, I mean, he plays pretty violently at times out there. So I don't think he starts. I think Podence starts. I think everybody else after that will be in there. Is
the deadline the Wednesday though, or the Thursday? It's the deadline's at 5, I think, UK time on the Wednesday, I think. So I think if that's the case, he's gone. So if he's not in the squad, then if whoever's not in the squad, I could see him going.
It closes at 11 p.m. on September 1st. 11 p.m. BST.
So that's the first.
So that's
day.
Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah. I think regardless, if you're that close to a move, you're not going to be involved at all if a game's that close to the deadline.
Yeah, that's the only change I see. And then we have on Saturday against Southampton, who is another team that's just slightly ahead of Wolves in the standings with 4 points. Paul, Southampton's one of those teams that always seems to play Wolves tough.
Yeah, it's at Molineux or away from Molineux at St Mary's. It's always a team that never lies down and never make it comfortable. Even if we do like last season at home, get 2 goals on them and suddenly they come up and score a worldie like James Ward-Prowse's free kick and turn the pressure up that way. It's never one that you going into really full of confidence just because they're a tricky opponent.
Aaron, what do you think the lineup for that one will be? Assuming it goes with your idea that the lineup stays the same for Wednesday, do you think because of there's a shorter turnaround, you could see a couple of guys like Dendonker making it?
I don't know. How quickly can we turn around and get Special K registered?
It's a great point. That's a great point.
If he's, from what it looks like, he's touched down in England now. Get the medical done. If Raul doesn't bag a couple in Wednesday, then maybe we throw a little Special K mix in there. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I could see him. I mean, he definitely, I don't think will be in Wednesday's game. Maybe he's on the bench. I would still be surprised by that. I could see him Saturday playing a big role. I don't know if he starts. What do you think, Paul? You think he starts?
I don't think he starts yet. I think he's going to be sprinkled in gradually over the first few games. So it's going to be a transition for him, I think, both in terms of the league and new teammates than the way we play. I think it's a harder position for someone to necessarily come in and hit the ground running straight away.
So how important, Aaron, are these 2 games to get 6 points from? What would be your panic level if they only get 4 or 3 or nil?
If it's nil, if you're not on panic level, I'm not really sure that you're alive. I hate to say these types of things where it's, we got to get 6 out of these 2. That next stretch looks really tough, but all last year and recent times we really kind of play up or down to the competition. So Liverpool's not really just, I mean, obviously they just hung 9 up last weekend, but outside of that, their performances haven't been just, world beater. 4 points and I would be happy as long as the performances are continuing to grow and we're scoring. I've been pleased with the way we've played for most of the time this season. So to just say, oh, we have to have 6 points or I'll be, devastated. It feels like we need all 6 of them. But I don't think that I'd be panicking if we won 1 and drew 1.
Paul, what would be your panic level? How many points do they need to get to avoid a panic?
So for me, I think 4, but because again, at the end of the day, I don't really, I don't buy into going away from home in the EPL and expecting the opposition to roll over and have their bellies tickled. So I would take 4 points from these next 2 games, but the the panic level is going to be turned up massively on Wednesday if we go there and only get a point. And then the air of letdown on Saturday would be that if we go to Bournemouth and win, and everyone will be thinking, oh, great, there's the 3 points. We're going to beat Southampton easily. And then that turns into a draw. That's going to be deflating, especially with those tougher games on the horizon. So I'd take 4, but I don't think that would do anything to. It would be that it would dampen the panic level, but I don't think it would do anything in terms of building expectations.
Yeah, that it would be typical Wolves. Looking great, 3 points, big win, coming back against Southampton at home and laying a turd. Well, let's talk predictions then. We'll start with Wednesday's game against Bournemouth. Here's the updated standings. Alex, with that 1-1 draw against Newcastle, you got 3 points, as did Todd, our guest, and myself. So Alex is in first with 8 points. I've got 6 points, which may actually eclipse what I had all of last year. Our guest hosts have 5 points. And then, Paul, you're sitting on 3, but you did get 2 points this last week. So, baby steps, right?
Just like the team.
Just like the team. That's right. So let's start off with the Bournemouth game. Paul, what's your prediction for Bournemouth?
I think if they're off the back of a 9-0 defeat, we're not going to go there and score 9. But we will find our shooting boots. And for Clive, it'll be a 5-1. Wolves win.
That was also my prediction. 5-1 for Clive. Wolves win. Alex?
If you're not going to score multiple goals in this game, I don't know where you can. I'll go 2-0.
2-0. Okay. And then Aaron.
I'm gonna go 2-1. Wolves win.
Okay.
Off the back of a 9-0, I think they're going to be hungry, and we've shown to be susceptible to a mistake or two. But I still feel like we go and get the job done. So I'm going to go 2-1.
Okay, Paul, Southampton, what do you got there?
Whilst I have my fears of a win on Sunday, but coming back down to an earth with a bump with that type of performance immediately afterwards, let me try and ride a somewhat air of positivity, and we do get those 6 points and everything turns out rose in the garden, and we have a 10 out of 10 transfer window, and we look back on this start to the season thinking, wow, that was just the early season jitters. So I will go 2-0 on Saturday. 2-0 Wolves win.
Alex?
I will go another maddening 1-1 draw in some type of ridiculously heartbreaking fashion, so it won't feel good. Probably like a James Ward-Prowse free kick that he just buries like in the 88th minute to knot it up. Molyneux goes silent, and still without seeing a victory in what feels like years at this point.
I know you're right too. That's the bad thing.
Yeah, that's what sucks.
Aaron?
I'm going to go on the slightly more hopeful side of his prediction and go 1-0. And we finally make my 75th minute text of, hey, show me you can win a game here come true. And so I'm going to go 1-0, and that 88th minute Ward-Prowse goes off the corner of the bar, and we're alive.
Like it. Paul, Clive taught me how to say Southampton because I was calling it Southampton. And he was like, Jigsaw boy, you got to say it right. It's Southampton. There's not 2 H's. It's good to 5-1 Wolves. All right. What kind of no stupid questions do we have this week, Alex?
Yep, we've got one no stupid question. Reminder to all of you out there listening, you could submit these. Each week we read them out, do it either via Twitter. You can get us at WLW Pod. Of course, you could email the show, hello@wholelotofwolves.com. Whatever your question is, it can be related to the matches, related to the squad, or anything is pretty much on the table. Just hit us up there. And obviously you can reach all of us on our individual Twitters as well. Our question this week is from Brian Donley of Charlotte Wolves. He's at Brian Donley 8. Going back to Special K discussion, is it against the rules for Special K to pick up Podence to get really high corner set pieces? And would that count as an assist if you were to do so?
Ooh,
Anybody
Paul?
want to check the rule book?
Paul, do you know the rules on that?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get away with that one. But what I'd like to mention is that back in the day when I was playing, or it was a Sunday morning game, often it was your responsibility to put the nets up and take them down. So I think the ground staff at the Molineux were going to find 2 new eager helpers to put the nets up, because Podence can go on Special K's shoulders and do it really quickly. So I think they found the call in there.
I can imagine that, because Paul's so tall. Like, I'm kind of
typically
Podence.
it was me stretching up to try and do it by myself, but yeah, sometimes there is some shaky moments with guys hanging off your shoulders.
Yeah,
especially early on a Sunday after a few beers on the night before. It probably wasn't the best position to be in, really.
That was going to be my
go
stupid
ahead.
question, was if you put Paul and Special K back to back, like, is there even much of a difference at all? Because we're talking about Special K, like, he fits into this like traveling freak show of the Wolves' unique builds. It's like Paul would fit right in there.
I am the Podence to Paul's Special K.
Yeah, he's got me by an inch by all accounts. So yeah.
Aaron, I mean, do you follow rugby? Because they kind of do that in rugby.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy who's probably pretty similarly statured to Podence, I feel a little bit offended, even though the comment is funny. I mean, I'd love to see him, hoist him up there and Podence go get him a header goal. That'd be wonderful. But, great thoughts. I love it. It's funny.
Can you imagine if Podence scores and Big Sassy just holds him up like it's Dirty Dancing?
Yeah, definitely.
And knowing the Wolves social media team, you better believe they would get a video up that night to "I had the time of my life" if that happens. Well, that's it for this show. So, Aaron, talk about Dallas Wolves. You guys have really been building up here the last few weeks.
Yeah, we really just started last year, and so we're still a pretty small group. We've got a couple of new people move to the area and reach out. I try to stay active on the Instagram handle is Wolves Dallas. So, feel free, give me a follow. If you have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. Paul has kind of scheduled their little Houston, Texas group meetup that we kind of been brainstorming here. And so that's coming up next month. Well, almost September, so October. And we're excited about that. We got a few of us that have committed to come down, trying to schedule a few others. So hopefully we can get a good crew together, and just continue the momentum of growing what has become a bit of a passion for us.
Yeah, Tex Fest is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. So that brings this week's show to an end. Thanks for listening. Please hop on to that social media and give us a follow on Twitter, on Facebook. Please go to the podcast listening app that you use and give us 5 stars or a thumbs up or whatever you can do to give us a review. That helps us massively and increases our exposure. So it will be the same time, same place next week to cover both of these upcoming games, and then look forward to, or look dreadfully forward to, however it pans out, to a little trip to Anfield on September the 10th to take on Liverpool. So, Jeff, I'm going to talk to you again. You've been doing a pretty good job based on our instructions of signing some players these past few weeks. So keep it up as far as that goes, and keep the outgoings to a minimum. And at the end of the day, everybody, up the mighty Wolves.
Whole Lot of Wolves is self-funded, so if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities as a way to reach a niche audience, email hello@wholelotofwolves.com for our sponsor packages. Just want to make a contribution as a listener who enjoys the show? Then head to buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. That's buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. We greatly appreciate any contribution. Up the Wolves.